Synthetic textile engineering possesses an inherent structural vulnerability. When a supply chain requires perfectly identical, uniform fibers, the entire system breaks under the slightest tension. Maintaining that synthetic standard requires massive resource extraction. It demands millions of gallons of fresh water, relies heavily on genetically modified seeds, and pushes high volumes of toxic chemical runoff into local ecosystems. Ethno-material science provides an alternative. The indigenous handloom ecosystems of India function as active, highly optimized material science laboratories. Instead of fighting the environment to produce uniform synthetics, these traditional systems engineer highly functional textiles by directly exploiting the unique biological adaptations of local agricultural byproducts. This conceptual flowchart illustrates the difference. On the left is the linear, high-waste industrial model. On the right, a continuous, localized loop. By studying these traditional systems, we can extract viable, measurable blueprints for future sustainable engineering. To understand how this works in practice, we have to examine the physical raw materials that form the basis of this ethno-STEAM approach. Our first material case study is Kala cotton, a highly specialized indigenous crop cultivated in the state of Gujarat. Our second is Kala silk. These fibers are extracted directly from discarded banana plant stems in Tamil Nadu. The central engineering challenge is mechanical. Artisans must physically transform these rugged, raw agricultural byproducts into viable, high-performance textiles without using any synthetic chemical solvents to break them down. The solution relies on a first principles buildup. The engineering logic begins with the biology of the seed, applies specific mechanics to the yarn, and scales up to the macrostructure of the loom. Kala cotton begins its life cycle in the arid, unforgiving topography of Kutch. Forced to adapt to a harsh environment, this cotton strain evolved severe drought resistance. It possesses the biological capacity to thrive with zero synthetic intervention. Because it requires no pesticides and relies solely on rainfall, this evolutionary biological trait naturally fulfills the highest international organic standards by default. Processing begins manually. Indigenous artisans, including the Rabari women, harvest and gin the raw cotton entirely by hand. Avoiding heavy industrial machinery is a deliberate mechanical choice. This low-impact harvesting preserves the fiber's inherent structural integrity before it reaches the spinning wheel. The raw cotton is then converted into yarn using traditional floor-based spinning tools like the kalos. Artisans manually draw and twist the fibers together. The variable pressure of human hands naturally introduces non-uniformities along the length of the thread. In a modern factory, those non-uniformities are rejected as defects. In traditional weaving, they are classified as engineered irregularity, a deliberate structural feature. Look at this microscopic cross-section. The diameter of the single hand-spun yarn thread rhythmically expands and contracts along its length. Place that next to a perfectly uniform industrial thread. When kinetic stress is applied to both fibers, their mechanical responses differ entirely. The uniform industrial thread concentrates the kinetic stress at a single point, making it highly susceptible to snapping. Because of its varying thickness, the hand-spun yarn disperses the kinetic stress across a wider area. The thicker nodes absorb the tension, preventing the fiber from breaking. This variable diameter also provides a macroscopic benefit. When woven together, the irregular intersections create natural microgaps, allowing air molecules to pass easily through the textile. Hand spinning does not compromise the material. It mechanically engineers texture, depth, and superior performance directly into the fiber's DNA. In Anakaputhur, weavers apply a similar mechanical logic to a different material, extracting Kala silk fibers from the stems of banana plants. The material science objective here is upcycling a rigid, discarded agricultural waste product into a flexible textile resource. Banana fiber has exceptional tensile strength, but its cellular structure makes it incredibly stiff and unyielding for clothing. Weavers solve this structural challenge directly on the loom. They engineer a blend, mapping the rigid banana fibers against softer cotton fibers. This diagram shows the microscopic cross-section of the woven matrix. The stiffer banana fibers act as the work, while the softer cotton fibers interlock as the weft. The result is a high-performance composite material. The cotton provides necessary flexibility, while the banana fiber acts as a rigid scaffolding, multiplying the overall structural durability. Using advanced traditional weaving techniques, two entirely separate biological materials are structurally engineered into a unified hybrid. Once the yarns are structurally integrated, they enter the preparation and treatment phases of the localized supply chain. Artisans use applied torsion to mechanically condition the yarn. Twisting the wet fibers under immense physical pressure forces the strands into alignment and strips out impurities. The material is then processed chemically using natural dyeing systems. By extracting fugitive stains from local roots, bark, and berries, artisans replication deep color fastness without relying on carcinogenic synthetic dyes that pollute industrial water tables. These localized finishing steps yield a material that possesses specific mechanical strength while maintaining the chemical purity of the original fibers. Scaling up from the microscopic level reveals the macroscopic behavior of the finished textile. The combination of engineered irregularities, hybrid weaving, and natural finishing yields a fabric with superior drape, high breathability, and active temperature regulation. Today, these processes are receiving dedicated technological support. Institutions like the Indian Council of Agricultural Research are stepping in to help optimize these techniques for broader impact. With institutional backing, these highly optimized handloom models can transition from niche cultural traditions to globally scalable circular economies. It provides concrete evidence that high-performance textiles can be mass-produced without mass industrialization. We can measure the efficiency of the handloom ecosystem precisely by filtering it through modern quantitative sustainability metrics. This chart compares the resource footprint of standard industrial textiles against the localized cotton and banana fiber models. Because the traditional model utilizes existing agricultural waste and zero chemical crops, the metrics for transportation emissions and raw water usage plummet. These methods satisfy the metrics for the global sustainable development goal of responsible consumption and production directly at the source. Indian Handlooms are active closed-loop laboratories. They provide the scientific blueprints needed to build the future of sustainable materials engineering.